Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9 FM. I'm Paul Kretschmer. Karen Whiting is an author who's written a book that talks about respecting authority and supporting those who have responsibilities. 52 devotions, one per week. She's my guest on today's WIHS Journal.
Yes, that's my latest book, and I'm always writing to help families be stronger, to help them connect to one another and to God, and in particular to develop a servant heart. So I am Karen Whiting, and I've done 26 books and tons of articles.
So you must be researching and planning and actually writing just about all of the time, just like anyone else has a job where they are working steadily on something or on an ongoing basis, some kind of a product or a service then, from the sounds of it.
Yes, I pretty much write full-time.
How would you characterize the general breakdown in respect for authority in the Western world? Most of us, I think, who come from the perspective that we do have that sense, but we may not have been able to break it down into pieces that are easy enough to comprehend as to why we think what we observe. Yes,
there seems to be a general lack of respect or a degeneration of respect for authority, and a lot of things can start in the home. You get a ticket from a law enforcement person, you complain, your children don't think you respect the law. It can be as simple as that. It can be you turn on news media and they're always putting down the opposite side, whoever it is, and often putting down law enforcement. Right now we're being thankful to our military, and I'm very grateful for that. We normally don't have as much of a problem with firefighters because we know how much we need them. And I think the other thing we see is people not respecting one another, interrupting people, putting them down, not complimenting or encouraging someone. And we really have to start with each person helping and encouraging another person and saying positive things.
One of the observations that I myself make is that when I see a lot of what goes on from day to day, whether it's here in Connecticut or nationally or regionally, is the atmosphere seems to be so toxic that even when a person attempts to do something in a bipartisan or nonpartisan fashion, they end up getting attacked from either one or the other or both sides who are clashing with each other, who seem to both be looking for blood and are not prepared to look weak or to look statesmanlike by taking a position that is less, shall we say, partisan on one level and another. In that way, I'm not just talking about politics, but a lot of other things that we see in life. How do you see the devotion book that you've written here, that you've referenced now, and I have too, that can lend some sort of ground or basis to take the situation that I think I've characterized and that you've touched upon too, and swing that in a different direction that actually means progress instead of just beating each other senseless?
Right. Every week there's a story that's positive and looks upon the good people are trying to do and what's in their heart. And I think we have to start with that, whether you use these stories or just stories from your own life. And there's also chat prompts. And we need to have more conversation with our families. So many times people are rushing around. They're not sitting down and conversing with their own children. And even when they eat together, they think, oh, we're eating together, see that? And they turn on the TV. They pay attention to their phones and not their children. And children don't feel valued that way. They don't feel accepted. And we have to start with helping them learn to converse and learn that we can disagree without a shouting match and without putting the other person down. And we need to not have the toxic shows on. When they start turning toxic, turn it off, because if the ratings go down, they will start realizing, oh, the only people who want to watch are when we do something encouraging.
I've noticed that oftentimes there are motion pictures, for instance, now that are out that are seen as very positive. There's a whole class of people who act in motion pictures, like Kevin Sorbo, to mention just one name, who seems to have devoted his life, and a number of his colleagues too, to doing positive things. And the general consensus of the world is if what the world thinks is necessarily the benchmark for where we should go. they're positive. People like them. They appreciate them. They go see them. They bring in good revenue, and sometimes they're granted awards or at least nominated for them. While at the same time, the world, as I say, is not necessarily the benchmark, can't wait to criticize and comment and cut down and so on and so on. So, I guess what I'm asking is. Is that confirmation that believers should definitely not look at the world for any lessons at all, or only lessons insofar as they reflect why God made the things he did because the world acts the way it does?
Well, we have to live in the world but not be of the world. I think we have to look beyond that and be grateful for what we have and for God, but we certainly have to know what's going on out there and understand that a lot of that anger that is coming out in their words begins in the heart. Jesus said everything begins in the heart. And understand that they need a lot of prayer, that they're hurting, they're angry, they're upset, whatever it is, and we need to pray for their hearts. We need to understand that for them, life has not necessarily been a wonderful experience. And we have to do what we can with acts of kindness and love, intentional acts of kindness and love, to sprinkle some joy into those people's hearts.
I remember a book that came out a long time ago by an author named Evelyn Christensen on the subject of prayer. And one of the points that she made in one of her books was, Lord, don't change my spouse, don't change my children, don't change the person I work with, don't change the person who cut me off in traffic, change me. Is that sort of the same thing as saying, rather than throw brickbats at people we don't agree with or people we have differences with, start with us first in our prayer life and how we reflect the Lord before we can then turn around and expect to see other people change because they see us as a positive influence, not just a mortal enemy?
Yes, and I really appreciated her book, What Happens When Women Pray. So I do believe that's certainly part of that, and that, in fact, when people cut me off, I learned from my husband to say, you know what? God put them there because they need prayer, and I'm going to pray for that person right now. It's a call to prayer, not a call to be upset because they were put there, that perhaps no one's praying for them. And to think about that type of thing, to think towards others and act towards them with grace. And that's part of what we want to do. That's part of what becomes a servant heart in a person and that we want to develop in our children. And if we do that one by one, we can impact lives.
Before we take the next step in this conversation, could you give me and listeners an idea of the range of subject matter or approaches that you've taken with the books that you've written in the past? As you mentioned a moment ago, you've written, about 25 of them?
Yes, I've done so many books, and I've written books on hope that is a true, just a daily devotional for people, very short, to give you a little bit of hope in life, because when we are bombarded with all the negative things, we want to keep looking at something hopeful. I've done a book on bread, the gift of bread, because I really believe that part of the heart of the family should be breaking bread with one another and with our friends and extending that out. And it begins with cooking together in the kitchen and sitting down and eating. And I mean, I was one of those homes where everybody showed up, and I might have 5 children, but there might be 12 at the dinner table. Yeah. And so that was fine because I wanted to have that time. And if they did that, I always had bread dough in my bread machine to pull out and have everybody who came in the door help make pretzels, so that by the time we sat down, they would feel they were part of the family and really feel like they were accepted and belonged. And I think that's part of what we need to do. So all of my books, and I have inspirational craft books for girls and devotionals for boys that really have a lot of fun and punchy, things in them. And that's just to equip them to be the future leaders of tomorrow, to give them skills, to help them feel they belong and that they're valued and they have abilities and skills that are useful.
This is the first of 2 broadcasts with Karen Whiting, who's written a devotional book regarding those who are in authority. For further information, call us at 860-346-1049. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily those of the staff or management of the station. I'm Paul Kretschmer on the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from WIHS, Middletown.